All right, and we're back to part 2 of section 7.2. Let's see what this example is. So we have a nonpolar solute and we have a nonpolar solvent. Okay. So our example here is iodine, which is nonpolar. And of course, the only interactions between two molecules of iodine would be just those very, very weak London dispersion forces. So I would imagine it'd be pretty easy to overcome that, right? And then our solvent here is carbon tetrachloride. Carbon tetrachloride, being a perfectly symmetrical molecule, is also nonpolar. And again, the interactions between two molecules of carbon tetrachloride would only be London dispersion forces as well. So in this particular case, these two molecules are going to be able to overcome those weak dispersion forces. And so these two molecules, both being nonpolar, are going to be able to dissolve in each other. So here in this particular case, like dissolves like in that they are both nonpolar molecules. Now, need to move on quickly. I found out while taping the first video that I took forever and my 15 minutes was up. So that's why I had to move on to a part 2 video. So I think this links back to the vitamin interesting tidbit at the very beginning. So that interesting tidbit about our fat and water soluble molecules. Vitamin A is a very large molecule. Take a look at this long chain of hydrocarbons here on the left-hand side, right? Making the molecule nonpolar. And so vitamin A, the entire molecule, is considered to be not water soluble. The molecule is nonpolar and not able to get in between those water molecules and breaking apart those hydrogen bonds. Whereas with, let's take a look at vitamin C. Let's see what's going on here with vitamin C. Vitamin C is water soluble. Let's see. So it contains many hydroxyl groups. We saw those hydroxyl groups in the example of sugar, right? Lots of hydroxyl groups allow it to act as a very polar molecule and does get in between those water molecules. Okay. I was just kind of interested to see where those hydroxyl groups were. They didn't really color everything, but oh yeah, there's a lot of hydroxyl groups. I get it. Now we get to some interesting real-life examples, and soap, and how soap is able to break apart grease. You're going to hear those words hydrophilic and hydrophobic quite a bit. So I'd like you to read the section, and I've also attached to my assignment just a short little video on, and you'll hear in the video a little bit more about the hydrophobic and the hydrophilic. Oh, we've come to the end. All right. Having a quick peek at this. All right. Now, very short. Good. So keeping in mind the overall theme here being like dissolves like. Right? Polar dissolves polar. Nonpolar dissolves nonpolar. And just here in my OneNote notebook, I just wanted to find this page. I was reading up on this the other day and I thought, wow, this is again perfect for the topic that we're covering. Dyson put out a bunch of challenges. I thought it was kind of cool. I like my Dyson vacuum cleaner. They're very innovative. And then the Dyson fan, wow, right? Quite different. And they've put out a couple of science challenges. I thought that were pretty fun. And here's one that has to do with our topic. When on Earth does 100 plus 100 equal to 192? Maybe this picture will give us an idea. Now, let's go on to read. See if I can make this a little bit bigger. There we go. When does 100 and 100 add up to 192? If you go get 100 milliliter of water and then go get 100 milliliter of ethanol. Now, if I had some isopropyl alcohol at home, I would have demonstrated this, but I don't. My sister took it all to make that sanitizer, you know, so I can't. And if we pour the two together, you would expect to get a final volume of 200, right? But actually, you would actually see that the total volume is only about 192. What's going on? So what's going on is explained over here in the blue. They fit together better than when they are alone. What's more, the hydroxyl part of the ethanol interacts with the hydrogen part of the water molecule, creating hydrogen bonds. Hey! So this creates a tighter molecular formation and therefore reducing the total volume of those two combined liquids. Hey, we understand that. Let's keep going. Another one I was thinking about, just as I was preparing for this 7.2 lesson. Have you ever gotten pen mark on your white hoodie? How do you take the pen mark out of your clothing? Well, again, if I had isopropyl alcohol at home and my sister didn't use it all, I would demonstrate. So taking a little cotton ball soaked with isopropyl alcohol, give that a try and just kind of dab at the ink mark that has stained your hoodie. Now, what's the chemistry behind this? Why are we using isopropyl alcohol? Again, it is like dissolves like, right? So ink is very often not water-based. Sometimes it's alcohol-based, and so if it's alcohol-based, then we use another substance like ethyl alcohol to remove it. Like dissolves like. How about this one? This one. I'm definitely not demonstrating this one. How do you remove gum from your clothing? Now let's think about the composition of gum. It's definitely not water-soluble. I don't think it's alcohol-based either. And would you believe it? Peanut butter? You rub peanut butter. Well, it's oil-based. So, in fact, you can rub peanut butter or any sort of oil-based substance, and it helps you to remove that residual gum that you can't remove from your clothing. Yeah, I've had that happen. Yep, again, I'm not demonstrating. So the next time you need to think about stain removal, think like dissolves like. Good seeing you today. See you next time.